Have you ever worked as hard as you could, only to watch something you cared about slip away anyway? Have you ever believed that if you just tried harder, nothing would go wrong, until life proved otherwise? This is a quiet reminder that loss does not mean the end, and that perseverance often begins after things fall apart. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for all your support. Tessa lived on the edge of a wide countryside, where the land rolled gently toward distant hills. Each morning, before the sun fully rose, she stepped outside her small stone home and listened. The low calls of cattle, the soft bleating of sheep, and the restless sounds of goats greeted her like familiar voices. They depended on her, and she carried that truth with pride. She was young, yet her days were filled with responsibility. Tessa believed deeply that hard work could prevent failure. She rose early, repaired fences worn by time, carried water from the well, and walked the fields until her legs grew tired. In her heart, strength meant never losing control. If she stayed vigilant, she believed nothing precious would ever be taken from her. For most of the year, the land was kind. Grass grew thick near the riverbanks, and the animals moved calmly across the fields. Each night, Tessa counted her flock as the sky darkened. Every number brought reassurance. Each quiet evening felt like proof that her effort was enough. But the countryside, like life, did not promise certainty. One afternoon, the wind shifted without warning. Clouds gathered low and heavy, moving faster than she expected. Tessa noticed the sharpness in the air, but she told herself the storm would pass as others had before. She guided the animals closer to shelter and worked quickly, trusting the routines she had always relied on. When the first rain fell, she was still securing the final date. Then the storm arrived in full force. Rain struck the land sideways, driven by fierce wind. The cattle pressed together in fear. Sheep scattered across the fields, their pale shapes fading into the gray distance. Goats leapt and broke through weakened fencing. Tessa ran and called out, her clothes soaked, her steps slowed by mud. She reached for the animals, but the storm swallowed her voice and strength alike. Night came early that day. When the storm finally passed, the land stood silent in a way that felt unfamiliar and wrong. Fences lay twisted, the fields were torn and heavy with water. Tessa stood alone in the dim light and began to count. One by one, the numbers fell short. Sheep were missing, goats were gone, even a young calf had vanished into the hills. She searched until her hands trembled and her legs could no longer carry her. She followed fading tracks and called until her throat burned. The land gave no answer. At dawn, Tessa sat on a broken fence post, staring at the empty fields. For the first time, she did not know what to do next. Shame settled deeper than exhaustion. She replayed every decision, every moment she believed she should have acted sooner. The certainty she once carried began to crack, leaving only doubt behind. In the days that followed, she moved through her work like a shadow. She fed the remaining animals, repaired what she could, and avoided looking toward the hills. Each task reminded her of what she had lost. The silence that once brought comfort now felt heavy. More than once she considered leaving. Others had done so after failure. She imagined walking away and letting the land return to stillness. The thought felt like relief, and that realization frightened her most of all. One evening, as she repaired a fence with tired hands, an older shepherd from a neighboring field paused nearby. He watched quietly for a moment. When she stopped to rest, he nodded toward the post she was tightening. "You're pulling it too tight," he said. "It will break when the ground shifts." Tessa hesitated, then loosened the rope. The post settled firmly into the earth. The shepherd did not mention the storm or the missing flock. As he turned to leave, he added only, "Strong things need room to move." That night, his words stayed with her. Tessa realized how rigid she had been, not just with her fences, but with herself. She had believed effort alone could hold everything together. She now understood that effort without understanding could still fail. The next morning, she began again. Slowly, carefully, she walked the fields and studied where water gathered and where the land weakened. She rebuilt fences with space to bend instead of break. She moved the animals earlier when the sky darkened. She watched more and rushed less. Days passed, then weeks. One afternoon, while guiding her sheep near the river, a familiar sound drifted from the hills, a faint bleat carried on the wind. She stopped, hardly daring to hope. Following the sound, she climbed carefully until she reached a sheltered hollow. There, she found 3 sheep grazing, thin but alive. Tessa knelt in the dirt and laughed through quiet tears. She did not rush them. She waited, spoke softly, and guided them home at their own pace. In the days that followed, more returned. A pair of goats appeared near the field's edge. One calm morning, the missing calf wandered back, stronger than she expected. Not all returned. Some losses remained, but each return felt earned through patience rather than chance. As the seasons changed, so did Tessa. She no longer worked to prove herself. She worked to understand. When storms gathered, she prepared early. When mistakes happened, she adjusted instead of blaming herself. Her movements grew steady. Her decisions became calm. The land responded. The animals followed her with trust. The fields slowly healed. One evening, as the sun painted the hills in gold, Tessa counted her flock. Its number was smaller than before, but it was enough. Each animal stood as proof not of perfection, but of persistence. Standing by the fence, Tessa understood that failure had not come to end her path. It had come to teach her how to continue. She had lost part of her flock, but she had gained something stronger than certainty. She had gained wisdom, and wisdom, she knew, would carry her forward long after strength alone had faded. If you've ever felt like loss meant the end, remember this: sometimes perseverance begins only after everything changes. What would you have done in her place? Drop it in the comments. Thank you.